Change to speed. Right. So, quick show of hands. How many of you heard of OpenStreetMap before in this room? Before? Pretty much most of the people. How many people have edited OpenStreetMap before? One person. How many people have used OpenStreetMap data as a developer to, for maps purposes or whatever? A few more people. Okay. And kind of as an end user, have you used OpenStreetMap maps, possibly even without realising it? Apple Maps do use it in some parts of the world on mobile phone app or through some of the other apps we'll discuss later. So I'm Shaun MacDonald. I came across OpenStreetMap back in March 2007, so yeah, quite a few years ago. I started editing up in Edinburgh, where I was living at the time. I then moved to London about a year later to work for CloudMade, who were one of the first companies to be using OpenStreetMap data in a commercial environment. I'm one of the few people who've been working on a lot of the kind of core code base of OpenStreetMap. I haven't done so much recently, but in terms of the API, I know how the back end of it works quite well. And I've done a lot of kind of mapping parties and talks and so on over the years. I now work for a company called Data World, who are based in Ipswich, and I've now been in Ipswich for 2 years. So, why do people use OpenStreetMap? Why did OpenStreetMap come about? It came about because there was problems with licensing raw geographic data. So if you wanted to go after the Ordnance Survey and try and do something interesting, which is an idea that the Ordnance Survey hadn't done before, or someone else hadn't done before using the Ordnance Survey data, the Ordnance Survey were sitting there going, we don't know how to sit there and sell you this data, we don't know what price to sell you it for. And so there have been problems where people were trying to print in Fabric or print, do offline maps or whatever, and they were having problems with trying to get prices. Or they were trying to do something which would be cost prohibitive for the budget that they had. And so Steve Coates, back in 2004, pretty much 10 years ago, in a couple of weeks' time, started OpenStreetMap to basically counteract some of these issues. And there's been quite a lot of interesting kind of projects that have come out of it, some of which I'll discuss later. Also, some of the problems with some of the other maps just aren't quite as good in some ways. I'll take a look at a few of these maps. The Google Maps, it's got some interesting. One of the things which Google are doing quite a lot is kind of using the information that they know about where you are to try and customize the maps quite a lot. But they do kind of miss out on some of the details, like some of the paths. They don't tend to deal, although they do now have cycle routing, the cycle routing tends to be a case of avoid using it because it's so poor in a lot of places. This is Bing Maps, and although it does have the application which we're in there, it doesn't really building outlines or that sort of stuff. And here's OpenStreetMap for this area, which kind of has an area for the university as a big including across the main road there on the other side of the 4th Street. A little more detail. Now these maps can be customized depending on your needs. So, for example, this is the OpenCycle map, which has cycle routing information, and one of the probably the most important thing about OpenStreetMap is you can take the data, it doesn't cost you anything for the data, and you can make it look in some rather interesting ways. So for example, here's the speed limits for Ipswich. Or railway electrification, whether or not the railways are electrified. OpenWhatever Map. What they've done is just basically taken a whole series of different map tile providers and mashed them all together, and it will randomly choose the map tile provider. It doesn't have any real purpose other than to highlight the wonderful different maps that are available. And as you zoom in and out, it just randomly chooses which map to provide you. So I'll go through some use cases of projects which have actually been quite useful. So first up is side streets, which are the first journey planner for cyclists in the UK. Before that, it was very difficult as a cyclist to be able to get a journey planner which gave you useful directions. People used to use Google Maps and said avoid highways, and it would give you something about right, but it didn't know about all the little cycle paths, and which quite often you'll have a nice cycle path which will avoid main roads. There are mobile apps available and short URLs and so on. Cycle.travel is another newer website which has only come out this year. It's tailored to the kind of more leisure routing, whereas Cycle Streets is probably more the kind of commuting style. It does have Cycle.travel has draggable routes, which means you can take a middle point of the route and say, okay, I don't want to go via that point, I want to go via this other place. They also have a lot of information and news on the website if you're interested in cycling. They've also used Richard Fairhurst, who's built the site. He's used a special custom map layer which he's created himself with some custom cartography, which uses some influence from the Ordnance Survey maps in terms of how to display stuff. One of the first kind of big projects which got OpenStreetMap into the news was Haiti, when there was the big disaster there, and after that there was things like the HOT team, which is the humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. And what they do is organise events and aerial imagery and so on, such that as soon as there is a disaster somewhere in the world, there is map data available. Quite often it means that they're planning ahead to try and make sure there's map data available beforehand. So people in Haiti, like the Red Cross, were sitting there using those short maps and garments and getting them updated every day from a central point. Now there's no mobile phone signal or anything, but they were able to sit there and go out onto the field and send updates back and be able to get the updates, and because it was a very fast update cycle, they were able to get the most up-to-date maps possible, which wouldn't have been available through other commercial providers. As another example, bus stop posters. The company I work for, we produce bus stop. One of our products is bus stop posters for local authorities and bus operators. And quite often when you get off a bus, you want to know how to get to your destination, but you might not have a phone, or you might not have, you might not be able to orientate yourself quite so quickly. Whereas if you've got a map there on the bus stop, it could be quite useful. Splash maps. These are fabric maps which kind of show various bits and pieces. So I'll let you pass that around. They're available. They're now available. You can basically custom print any area that you like within the UK. Foursquare are... yes, one of the problems that the guy that was making that makes splash maps was having, he was trying to talk to the Ordnance Survey about licensing their data for producing them. They were like, he just could not come to an agreement in terms of pricing because they couldn't work out how to price the data. Now with the newer open Ordnance Survey data, that's not a problem. You can use that, but that's often not good enough quality, which is why a mix of the Ordnance Survey open data and the OpenStreetMap data is used. Foursquare, some years ago, a couple of years ago, Google started charging for large users of the OpenStreetMap data. Sorry, the Google Maps users. And so a lot of people, including Foursquare, went, we can't afford all these big charges that Google are suddenly throwing upon us. And so a lot of people started looking for alternatives, and OpenStreetMap was one of them, which is why they went through companies such as Mapbox to provide the maps now. Now I'll go through a bit of the the data model, which this is going to get a bit more technical. First of all, you've got points, so which are called nodes in OpenStreetMap speak. So it's, for example, a bus stop or a railway station or places or post boxes, things which have don't cover much area. Even shops can be initially mapped as a point, or they can be mapped as an area, which we'll come on to in a moment. You then have ways, which are either lines or areas, where an area is just where the first and last node happens to be the same point. And so it's things like roads, ferries, car parks, larger shops, parks, and so on. They all get mapped as ways. There are plans for an API, the next API version, to be able to support areas, but that's not quite good. That's only a discussion point at the moment. So it has been for the past 5 years. So whether or not it's going to take another 5 years or not, I don't know. But then have relations, which are they link together, or they're an ordered list of nodes, ways, and relations. So they combine them together for things like routes, or to be able to say this is a whole road, and for example, if it's a major road that runs down to the country, you might want to put it in a relation, so then you can pick up a lot easier rather than having to have lots of different ways which are split up because of bridges or changes in speed limit and so on. You also get things like multi-polygons, which are where you've got a building with a hole in it, for example, or where you've got a set of buildings which you want to have grouped together for some reason. Then you've got tags where each of the previous objects has one of these, or many of these. There's an example on the side there of the brewery tap, where you have it's basically key value pairs, and a bit like a hash if you're used to the programming language. There's a maximum of 255 characters, which is a bit of a hangover from the MySQL days, but that was kind of kept there as a way of preventing people trying to stuff a whole story into the OSM data. Although it can be done because there is no limit in the number of key value pairs you can have on each object. So when you make changes, all of the changes are grouped together into what's called a change set. It's slightly confusing because it's not like like version control, where all the changes and change that are atomic, because you can have one change which can have lots of changes spread across time, and you can have two change sets intertwined with each other. Generally speaking, it doesn't make any difference, it doesn't affect most people, but if you're starting to do analysis of the data, then it can start bringing up a bit of confusion. If you do a diff upload, which is the main kind of upload, where you basically say, here's a list of all the changes, please can I commit these, then that is atomic, that set of changes is atomic, but you can then do multiple uploads within the same change set. A new thing which has recently come out is the notes system. So for a while, for many years, there's a couple of different bug trackers available for people to be able to say, oh, there's a problem here, or this, there's a new housing estate here which is getting built, so we need to go away and survey that. But the problem was there was the problem was they were those bug tracking systems weren't getting kept up to date, and people, because they weren't integrated into the main OpenStreetMap website, there were people very difficult to know that they're actually there. But now that they're all integrated, then it makes it a lot easier, and there's also an API available for you to go away and include these notes on your own website, or be able to contribute to the notes using your own, directly from your website if you're showing the maps on your website. I'll go into a little bit of detail about the editing of OpenStreetMap data. So kind of the first thing you do is you spot there's an error somewhere, or there's something that's changed in the world. So you go away and collect the data, or you might know it from local knowledge. So you make a change in the editor, you upload it, and then you see the changes appear in the maps. You check, so it used to be it would take a week for the changes to appear because there would only be a weekly update. Now the main OSM maps are updated within a few minutes, so it's because there are minutely updates. There's quite a lot of kind of options for the data collection. It used to be that everything was done. In the very early days, the only option was getting a GPS out and walking all the streets. Now you've got things like using your mobile phone, and you can do the edits directly from the ground. So I've done quite a few bits that way. A lot of people do you have camera mapping, where you take a lot of pictures and you can then synchronize those pictures up to a GPS trace in some of the software. Quite often what I do on the bike is grab a video and use the video for the and go through the video. However, that can be quite time consuming. And some people do audio mapping. The most common editor that you'll probably use is called ID. It's very user friendly. There's a walkthrough when you start it, and it's designed for beginners. It's the first editor that's JavaScript based, because the previous web-based editors, well, the first one was Java, a Java applet, and then it was all kind of Flash. But some people have problems with Flash. ID I don't think is working in that Internet Explorer yet, so it's someday it will hopefully happen. Flash 2, there are some of the more advanced features in here which aren't in ID yet, but this case is, sometimes it's a case of choosing which editor you prefer, and sometimes depending on the type of changes that you're doing, you'll choose a particular editor based on that. That used to be the JAWSM is a desktop-based editor built on the Java platform, so it's cross-platform. and it quite often people who have got a bit of a GIS or a graphics background can sometimes find that a bit easier. On Android, I use Spookshi for my on-the-ground edits. You do need to have, generally speaking, you need to know the kind of key value pairs bit, otherwise you'll get a bit confused because there's no, although you've got the presets there, the presets don't go quite far enough to help you as well as they potentially could do as compared to some of the other editors. GoMap, there are a couple of other iOS editors as well. That's just one example, which means you can do on-the-ground edits on an iPhone or iPad. Another option which kind of come around this year is Mapillary, which is basically a more open variant of Google Street View. So one of the problems is you cannot, legally you're not able to use Google Street View for entering or deriving information and put it into Google Maps, into OpenStreetMap. Whereas with Mapillary, the license explicitly allows you to take any of the images that you've got there and to derive information out of it to put into OpenStreetMap. They also use OpenStreetMap as the background for the maps. Also, anyone with a smartphone can, or an ordinary camera and a GPS can, or a camera which has a GPS built in, can supply images for Mapillary, which is why I've got a bit of denim and heating pipe cover over the insulation on the front of my bike to be able to collect the images. On the key value pairs, I did come across a problem with trying to enter all of this information here, and I did only just manage to fit it all into the key value pairs that are into the 255 characters. But you can put quite complex opening hours into OpenStreetMap. And there are some apps which are starting to use the opening hours data to be able to go away and tell you whether or not something is open or not. So in terms of using OpenStreetMap in your own projects, so probably the most likely kind of first step is to use map tiles. They're basically images, square images where at zoom level 0 you've got the whole world, and as you go down it multiplies by a factor, but to the power of 2 based on the zoom level. So once you get down to kind of street level detail, you're looking at there being so many images you really don't want to sit there and download them all. You want to be rendering them on the fly if you do. There are many kind of commercial providers. Generally speaking, you won't write the JavaScript in fact, you really don't want to write the JavaScript for displaying the map tiles. You just reuse one of the many libraries that are available. The most likely one that you'll use is Leaflet, OpenLayers. You can even take the Google Maps API, or so the Google Maps JavaScript, you can use that and just basically put in a different tile layer of the most sharp one, and you can then, and there are other tutorials as well for helping you switch away from the